Stuck in a reality with no other realities to speed into, with an evolved form of the Batman who laughs and a horde of nightmare dark flashes hot on their tails, Jay Garrick, the Flash, Wallace, Wally West, or Kid Flash, Barry Allen, the Flash, and Wally West, the Flash, formerly known as Kid Flash, find themselves running for their lives and for reality itself. Quickly burning through the Speed Force energy and knowing their current plan isn't sustainable, this quartet combine their skills and abilities for one last-ditch effort that will make or break any chances of keeping the powers of Dr. Manhattan that were imbued in Wally West out of the hands of the Batman who laughs. Just before enacting their master plan, which happens to be the classic, "What if we turn around and run towards what's after us?" approach, Jay, Wallace, and Barry suddenly feel a surge of dark energy that normally wouldn't be a good thing, but brought us three pretty darn cool makeovers to go along with the already rad, non-red, blue Wally West. Hey everyone, my name is Jonathan, aka JK of JK Collects. I'll be posting a new video at least twice a week, if not more. If that sounds of interest to you, please click that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. In this episode, we are taking a closer look at the McFarlane Toys 7-inch scale DC Multiverse 5-figure Build-A-Figure set of Jay, Wallace, Barry, Wally, and the Darkest Knight from the DC Comics Dark Knight's Death Metal Speed Metal story. Okay, hey everyone, and welcome back. Here we go. Here is our quartet, along with the Build-A-Figure pieces inside the boxes. So we've got the four, Jay, Barry, Wallace, and Wally. So, right, let's get started. Let me move the four out of the way. We'll start with old Jay, right? He's right there in the back, the last one. So there we have him, good old Jay Garrick. Look at that classic look, but also the upgraded kind of death metal, speed metal look that they got right there as they were hatching that plan that we mentioned. So let's flip it around to the back, and here we have the collective build, right? So the Build-A-Figure list, the Darkest Knight. What a monster looking thing. I was very excited about this. This was actually kind of one of the selling points of getting the whole set. Otherwise it might have been just some individual Flash characters like the blue Wally West. Just really a cool looking Wally West, but we went for the whole thing. Anyway, here's a good old checklist. So this one comes with the head. If we look at the side, Jay Garrick Speed Metal, same basic layout of a McFarlane figure. We've got Jay Garrick on the side, bottom and top, and then there he is with our Build-A-Figure head and some Flash Speed Force electric business going on there. I do love all the effects that are coming with some figures these days. It's just great to see that stuff because it just adds that little bit of extra life and excitement to it. All right, speaking of life and excitement, let's get this alive and start building some excitement. So let's cut into this box here, hack that tape. That one piece of tape holding the flap on these multiverse boxes, and we'll pull it out. I did not want to pull out, so empty box. There we go. We'll put that to the side as usual. Pull the tray out, and there is our typical appearance. This one has the good old Zatara showing right there. Got to point it out every time. There's the stand, and there is our card, which is a photo of the figure itself, right? So there is our Jay Garrick, one that we can add to the collection of cards. So very cool. I'm curious if they'll all be just photos of the figure. All right, so let's pull these. Man, look at all these effects in here. I'm not even gonna know what to do with them. And these are, of course, attached. But you know what? The Darkest Knight's head is not. So let's see what we can undo from the back. See if I can pull some slack on the torso one for Jay. Yep. Oh, it'd be good if I did not bump the camera so hard or at all. Let's undo some of these foot ones for Jay, right? So hopefully we'll be able to get them out with no problem. I do appreciate that McFarlane goes to all this to make sure that their figure stays in place and doesn't bounce around presentation-wise, but boy, are these just tiresome, right? They're not too tough to cut, but they do make me a little nervous, right? Whether it's cutting and potentially damaging one of the figures or one of the accessories, or even myself. So, you know, I guess the short of that is be careful. As I've said it before, definitely be careful when undoing these things, especially if you're using a blade, because I've done it several times already, but I do still make myself nervous with it, especially as things get a little bit more difficult. All right, let's see if we can use some leverage. The hands are popping free, so there we go. Low enough on the forearms that he was able to wiggle out. That's everything from the tray. Get the shrapnel out of the way, and let's take a look at these accessories here. I'm going to put the Darkest Night head to the side, as we normally do, to build up the Build-A-Figure, and then once we have it all built up, we will put it together. So there we go. These are all just a bunch of electrical kind of Speed Force effects that we can put. It's got 4 of them, so it looks like, you know, maybe we're set for all the appendages, right? So you can have all kinds of cool stuff. And it looks like, just from the design of it, looks like it's kind of set to be being left behind, right? Or dragging behind, right? This looks like it's maybe a forearm piece, dragging behind because it's running so fast, using that Speed Force, burning that Speed Force up, unfortunately. But, I mean, you know what? I would be doing the same thing. If I had that power and I had that massive horde of basically everybody as a Dark Flash on my tail, thanks to that mutated crazy Batman Who Laughs, if he wasn't already crazy enough, right? So okay, there we go. You know what, just looking at this, what a large version of the Flash, right? You normally think he'd be a little bit thinner, a little bit just narrower, right, because of all the running and all that jazz, but this is definitely a beefed up and made to look pretty young with the dark metal thing that happened to them right before they decided to take on this plan. But yeah, okay, so let's take a little bit closer look, right? So hat is definitely attached, which is fine, right? It's part of the whole thing, right? It's very cool. It's kind of got like a UFO look, but then it's got the little wings on the side, which we're kind of used to. Those wings are definitely painted yellow from a cast silver, and as you can see, it is yellow paint on this silver hat. You know what, it might be painted from being cast something else, but the silver is the base color is what we'll say, and then the yellow is applied on it. And there's some parts where the yellow goes onto the silver or doesn't fully cover the silver. You may be able to see that, and we can see there's like a little imperfection there, but nothing that really detracts from it if we look at it as a whole image. And then how about this face paint, right? Coming down the side. I mean, it looks like he's ready for a sporting event, maybe a pretty rad concert or something. But the facial design and painting is just very well done. I would say that the blush, we'll say, that was applied to the cheek, kind of like a pinkish shade. I don't know if you can see it. A little heavy. It looks like it didn't blend very well because there's definitely a very clear pinkish right there. But I do like the yellow and the lightning bolt, and it's very well done and interesting because it highlights a lot of the detail sculpted into the face. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if my lights are killing it. Let me see if I can bring this one light down just a little bit so you can see see how it just accentuates the detail that's carved into the face, and that is fantastic, right? Very cool to be able to see that. The eyes looking forward with a very intense look on them, right? Definitely some life-altering decisions being made here, and just solid all-around sculpting. So let's see about mobility. Neck appears to be attached to the torso, which is fine. We've got really good side to side, right? So the leverage of the hat kind of helps, right? I can tilt it a little bit farther, but that's very good for side to side. Let's check the forward and back. So back, looking up, yeah, that's definitely looking upwards, so very good there, and then looking down, pretty good. So we got a peg up in there for sure. Almost seems like we got a little bit of assistance, so it might be a double-ended, not just on the ball, but it might be, what is it, maybe like a dumbbell, barbell joint down there that's into the head and into the neck. Either way, lots of mobility, but let's see, can we do it? Yes, we can, ladies and gentlemen. We have got full Exorcist. The only thing that concerns me there in doing that is we have the yellow paint here, but we also have this silver paint all the way around the collar, and it does come on the inside. So if I did that too many times, I'd be concerned about paint rubbing off. But maybe I'm the only person trying to do Exorcist rotation with these heads, because, you know, otherwise, what's the point? It's just me being me. But there we go. If we look at the shoulder, butterfly joint in there, so that's great for that mobility, for it to be able to pull back. That is that's really good right there. And then coming up, very high, full rotation on that. And the shoulder rotates very easily. A lot of times when when I try and do that rotation, it's this bicep and tricep pivot point that does it. But the shoulder is actually looser and ready to go, but not too loose to where it feels like it's just going to drop. Okay, and we've got double pinned elbows, but excellent flexibility there. It just about goes flat. Even though there is some musculature there, it's not too much to block it and prevent a lot of the flexibility. Forearm does not have rotation, but the wrist does. And it looks like we've got, yep, good old up and down, or the forward and back wiggle capability. But it gives the impression that we've got nice wiggle, that good old McFarlane wrist wiggle. Okay, other arm, same functionality, and yeah, looks like we got that same joint for the wrist, so we've got good wiggle all around for it. So happy to see that, and that shoulder is equally as mobile, but nothing weak about it because it definitely stays up just fine on its own. Mid-torso, we do have great flexibility there, right? So back, pretty good. Down and forward, pretty good. All right, a decent little crunch. And I appreciate that the yellow paint is traveling all the way up to the end. If you can see that cavity kind of peeking in up there, the yellow travels all the way up there. My only concern would be too much of this might cause it to rub off just a little bit. But that's fine. We can find a nice pose and leave them at it. But depending on how you pose it, it definitely separates that lightning bolt considerably. So one thing to keep in mind there. Waist, definitely have waist movement. And the yellow travels all the way down to the bottom. So excellent paint work on this, I will say, because it goes below this this belt line, and good rotation on it too, right? Even though it could be another concerning point for potential paint wear or rub. There we go. The J. Garrick Flash Split, very well done. That same typical joint that we see for McFarlane. We've got the flexible point up here at the top, so that does help keep that out of the way. Even these chains are flexible so they clear and don't impede the leg. We don't have any thigh rotation, but we do have a double knee. So when it's time to run at a bunch of dark flashes and just really kind of hope everything works out, you're ready to limber up, right? What flash doesn't need to limber up? That's a lot of fast running, no matter what powerful force you're tapping into. It doesn't look like there's a calf rotation, even though this would have been an excellent point for it, right? Just using that line is a good spot to rotate it. That's okay, because we have good foot movement up and down, all right? And we can do the good old ankle breaker, which would be very unfortunate for any flash. Seems like it would slow them down drastically. Okay, and of course toe articulation for the excellent posability. And same thing on both sides as far as the legs. All right, let's take a closer look at him and see how the paint is looking. We have a lot of cast pieces, right? Cast in red here for the shirt, yellow paint on here, so a little bit of torn type thing going there around the collar. What that got torn from, I do not know what that would have been. Maybe it would have been a mask coming all the way up, but I'm very curious what in the front would tear and flop over like that. But you know what? I didn't design it, but I'd be interested to know. The yellow paint on this looks very good, right? It only serves to highlight some of the detail in that, just like it did on the face. And it looks like it's very clean on these lines. Just maybe right there, you can see a little bit where there's yellow over that point where maybe the red was supposed to be still. The gauntlets painted silver and all very clean, right? No, it doesn't really seem like there's any issues. It's painted in a way that it certainly looks like it's metal, but not too terribly shiny of a metal, but still pretty well done. And then of course we got the metal all around here, the silver, which all looks pretty clean. Let's see on the big screen how we're looking. There might be a little bit of blue showing through in random points, but again, as usual with these kind of shinier silvers, it is tough to see because it could just be glare. But like say that right there, there's definitely blue showing through on that. So just a couple spots where it didn't quite make it, but it's difficult because of silver and blue having such similarities depending on the lighting. Chains really well done. Again, flexible, and it's in that silver color. All matching silvers, which I definitely appreciate, right? So we've got these insane knee pads. Doesn't seem like it'd be a comfortable way to take a knee, but it's definitely not something you want to be in the path of if it's running towards you. None of these would be. They'll just bust right through you. as we've seen in some of the stories. And then a little bit of silver all throughout here to be the strap for this, which I'm happy to see that's all the way around, right? Because sometimes, as we've seen before, this stuff gets skipped. And just looking at that, there's a little bit of waviness to the paint line of the silver there. But not enough to be upset about. This is a great figure, and I think we're already off to a really good start with this 4-pack. And I mean, nothing against Jay Garrick, but we've only started with good old Jay. Let's see how he stands on his own. Before we move on, I'd like to give him his chance to shine. You know, I'll be the first one to say, sometimes these McFarlane ones, they do not want to stand very easily. So there we go. There's old Jay Garrick standing on his own. And now let's move on to the next one, which will be none other than Barry Allen. And wow, look, we got a couple legs right here. Okay, so on the back, there's our checklist for the Darkest Night. Like I said, 2 legs, and then Barry Allen on the side, and then the Speed Metal, which is the series that we kind of teased a little bit there at the beginning. If you have not read it or seen any of the YouTube readings about it, definitely check it out. It's a very interesting story from an absurdly long storyline that just keeps building and building all the metal stuff. Okay, tray does not want to come out. There we go. Empty box. Set it to the side. Pull the tray, and then there is our stand. There is our Zatara. There we go. And then there's our yet another figure one. So Barry Allen, add that to collection. I'd love to see some Zatara figures coming out there. I know I say it every time, but it's in the hopes that somebody's listening. Okay, so let's pop some plastic here. Some little elastic rubber pieces. Let's see if we can get them from the front here without being too dangerous. That one's a little too close. Okay, this one maybe, if we start like this and kind of turn it. Yeah, here we go. We jumped right out and all the way down to the floor. Okay, so let's flip this over and see if we can bust some other things free. Thank you, as always, for your patience in busting these open and chopping through these. I know that it is not riveting at all, but it has to be done, right? And hopefully, if you plan on getting these figures or you already have them and you're going to open them up, it just gets you excited for that process yourself. Cutting these lovely, elasticy, rubbery plastic pieces. Okay, I think I got enough. Okay, yep, our force is all coming out. Let's see about these Darkest Night pieces. Oh man, these already look like they're made of a pretty cool plastic. So I'm looking forward to assembling that one. Golly, I've got shrapnel everywhere. Okay, now let's get old Barry out. Empty tray. Move that. Move Barry to the side. And then here are our force pieces that we have. So these are in the red, right? So Jay, we had the yellowish orange kind of. And these are in red. And we have 4 again, just like we did before. 2 of each, very similar. I would say almost identical, just kind of mirror images of themselves, right? But very neat, right? So it's kind of like a translucent red, just like Jay Garrick's were the translucent yellowish orange. So neat to see. I love having these effects. You know, once they're put on a figure, they just look so cool and just add that excitement, that movement and action to them. Barry, just looking at Barry, see very slender, right? Very much like I would expect a flash frame. Whoops. So you didn't see that. But hey, look, we've got a butterfly joint in the shoulder. Let's just pop that back in and hope that it stays. So yeah, okay. Definitely be careful with that. We are currently witnessing live and in person or on camera me struggling with a shoulder. Okay, I'm just gonna be very careful with that. And let's take a close look at the head. All right, subject change. Okay, so here we go. In his mask, I can already see some stuff standing out here, right? So the red on top of the cast black here, that's like a kind of a softer rubbery type plastic. Major miss right there. You know, oh, here, let's change it to manual so we can make sure we get as close as we can. Okay, There we go. Right, so see major miss right there, just that entire line underneath and subsequently above. So it was a tiny step off when uh, painting or printing the paint on there, and then that kind of has so a few opportunities on this one. Even on the inside, the paint is not quite as thick, so you can see a lot of the black showing through. A little disappointing to be able to see something like that stand out so much, especially when it's a red on black, because it is a lot easier to spot. They're such differentiating colors, and even in the face. Let me step it back a little bit. Even in the face, I'm going to dim this light because that one's washing him out just a little bit. So it doesn't quite, it almost seems like there could have been another layer of the flesh tone. It's pretty pale in the lights, I know, but the flesh tone, it almost seems like there's a tiny bit of black showing through, but I can't say for sure. I could be making it up, but you can see the blush on the cheeks, pretty well done. It's a lot better blended than Jay Garrick's was, but it looks like on the nose, a tiny bit of black kind of showing through there. The eyes are well done. They are looking forward, so I'm happy to see that. Very stern look on his face, very serious because he knows what's about to come. And pretty good detail, just kind of sculpted into the head and all the way around. All right, let's check out some flexibility. Side to side, not bad, right? So pretty good, pretty good. Let's change it back to auto so we can back up a little bit. So good side to side. Let's check out the up. Up, pretty good, right? Because that's not straightforward. And then down. I gotta say, in this profile, it kind of looks like Chris Evans. Anybody else? No? Captain America? All right, let's try the most important. Yep, we've got our full Exorcist rotation. Because we've got the head, it's definitely on at least a ball, if it's not the double, like Jay Garrick's head was, because the neck is clearly attached to the torso. So it is a one-piece thing. We're going to do this side just to be safe. So we do, as we saw, have a butterfly joint in there. We got the little disc that kind of travels out and gives it a little bit of freedom and kind of masks where it pulls out so far and could have a lot more exposed joint. Good rotation in the shoulder. We also have the bicep tricep rotation, but the thing here is we've got this tattoo line all the way down. So the more we rotate it, the more that tattoo is broken, and the paint does not follow down through the entire deltoid or rotator cuff. So depending on how much that bothers you, it might end up being a point where you can't really rotate the arm too much, but it doesn't really throw it off horribly because it is a lightning bolt, and it almost looks like, that's just another line in the bolt. Okay, and double elbow, which gives pretty good flexibility. So there we go, showing us how tough he is. And it does bend very close, just like we saw on Jay. So let's bring that down. No forearm rotation. We do have little straps to hold these pieces on, which is really neat. I'm glad to see that. I'm also happy to see the bolt go across the elbow here, right? Because sometimes we see where that just doesn't happen. But what's kind of throwing me here is we've got a little bit of red here. I'm assuming maybe it's supposed to be part of that. I can't quite make heads or tails of what this is supposed to be, if it's supposed to be part of the tattoo, which suddenly jumps over, or if it's part of this, which rides up. It's kind of hard to tell because they're a similar color red. Regardless, the wrist does have full rotation, and we've got full McFarlane wiggle. Okay? And of course, same thing on this side. I don't want to push it too much because you already saw what happened with that shoulder. Full McFarlane wiggle on the wrist. Let's just see how it's behaving. Yeah, I think it's just the peg's going to need a little bit of love for it to learn that it can do this. I think that's all that's happening. It just wants to stay in place, and I'll deal with that here a little bit off camera. I'm not going to make you watch that atrocity. We've got the mid-torso, right? So good, just like Jay. Same flexibility, same capability that we saw in Jay, so that's good. Not a lot of paint going on here, right? All this stuff is sculpted in, so not as much concern about wear or paint rub off, which is good. And then paint here in the middle, just a little bit here, but this is the portion that goes an overlay, so it's not going to get struck too much. Maybe on the inside, but you won't really see too much of it. Leg flexibility, same old joint from McFarlane, and we've got the berry split, pretty good, because again, this is rubberized and it does clear, bend out of the way. No thigh rotation, but we do have a double knee for solid limbering up, ready for that run. Okay, and no calf rotation, but we do have the foot up and down. Now this one, this boot piece or the bottom of the leg does interfere with the up and down of the foot. So if we look at it kind of straight on, doesn't travel up very far, doesn't travel down or back very far as one could. But we do have good old toe articulation, and it's the same thing on both sides. It has this little odd boot bottom thing going on there that ends up being a blocker, and it kind of does also interfere with the ankle breaker, right? Because it will rotate, but it doesn't really want to tilt much. So hey, the good news is his ankles, his joints are protected. That's what really matters when you're running super fast. Let's take a look at the paint, right? So we already saw tattoos on the arm, looking pretty good. This one, however, let's take a closer look at this one because, boom, look at that. Look how far off it is. That is a huge margin of error right there. So you see there's a massive line of red that's on what would have normally been flesh, and you can see the line for the red on that. So quality control on this one seems a little less than it was on J. I'm curious to see what the other ones are going to look like. We still have that going on there, and that gets a little bit wavy on this end. So I'm very curious how that break suddenly goes right there, if it's supposed to be the tattoo or if it's supposed to be these. But, you know, we have the paint on that showing the straps. Not entirely perfect. And then around here, again, kind of missed the very edge of it. This one does not have the strap over the knuckles, but, you know, some spots where maybe the paint's not exactly perfect. This wraparound, I wanted to just give it simple praise, but no, even around here on the back, there's some overspray, it looks like, of the red, and then even points where the red did not make it thick enough to cover the black. So this one, a little kind of surprised at all of the issues that we're spotting on this one. Again, red doesn't seem quite thick enough to coat the black, especially when we have this right next to it to compare, because it's a lot thicker on these knee pads than it is here. And I don't know if you can tell, but it does create a slightly different tone, right? It's still red, it's still there, but you can see here, this is a very good example of how there's kind of that slight blackish to it, right, to the very bottom of these feet. But all in all, I mean, it's still from a distance. This is that stuff that I always mention. We've got to look at it super close to see those issues. If I just put him back here, standing on his own, which happened to very easily, he looks fine, right? No issues. And even the logo on the chest, the only thing that stands out is right there. The red doesn't connect at the very top. And sure, the lightning bolt may not go all the way over, but again, it looks great, right? This is that dark metal flash that came along. Now, who do we have next? Why, none other than Kid Flash. Hey, Wallace, how you doing? All right, let's pop this guy open. But first, let's look around the back, see about our checklist. So we've got our torso, Kid Flash on the side, Kid Flash Speed Metal on this side. There's our giant torso. Can you see this plastic? It's like a dark, translucent, purpley black that has like a gradient to it. It's really neat. I can't wait to really mess with that Darkest Night character. I'm very excited about that one. Creepy looking, and so far looks like it's going to be worth getting this 4-pack for sure. All right, let's bust him out. Look at all these speed effects that he's got, right? So he's got 5. Not to spoiler alert. Okay, empty box. Put that to the side. Pull the tray over. There is our stand, and there is our Kid Flash photo of the toy to show us where all of the effects go. So there we go. So you can be properly covered in all of these Speed Force effects. I'm happy to see that at least this one is just taped down. I say just taped down, and then I'm getting defeated by tape as well. I'm just going to pull it over it. Okay, the rest of this is elastic, so let's see what damage we can do from behind so we don't do damage to any figures. And hopefully not myself. So as we're digging through these, right, it's neat to get to see all these different flashes, right? So many of them together in this storyline and here in this option. I'm very curious. It seems like everybody always has their choice flash, right? Whether it's Wallace, whether it's Wally or Barry, or hey, even Jay, right? But I'm curious if you're a big Flash fan, right? Who is your choice? Who is the Flash to you, right? I think for me, honestly, it is Barry, because he was the one that I knew the most and that I'd seen the most of in growing up, maybe. So that's just always the name that comes to mind is the Barry Allen Flash. So I'm very curious. Like, if you want to throw it in the comments and let me know who your Flash is by name in the comics. And then if you want to throw in a little something extra in movies and whatnot, who is your Flash? Because I'm going to go ahead and say my Flash is Michael Rosenbaum by voice, right? I mean, the way that he voiced the Flash in those animated shows and some of the animated movies, just absolutely fantastic, right? He is definitely my Flash for sure. Okay, so here we go, and here's that shoulder Speed Force that we saw. So it is some more of the translucent red, but it seems like it's got a little bit more of a pinkish to it. I don't know if it's showing properly. This really looks kind of like a dragon horse thing, but it's got like it's a little bit more translucent, maybe a slight pinkish to it versus the red that Barry's was. Can you see it kind of side by side? Those kind of show it with it behind it. Anyway, so that's our shoulder piece, and then just 4 different pieces, and these all kind of look like they are subtly different, right? Some of the other ones seemed like they were maybe mirror images of the same thing, but these all seem like they are different in some way, and all really neat, right? There is a lot of intricate work in here. It's kind of hard to see necessarily. You can see how the light reflects off of it, but so cool, so cool. Okay, so that's it for our Speed Force pieces. And here he is. Here is our kid Flash. Look at this guy. I mean, he's got so much going on. Talk about some crazy upgrades, right? Okay, let's take a closer look at this guy. Is anybody else getting G.I. Joe, Iron Grenadier, Destro vibes here? Those little shoulder things. Maybe he had it on one side and it was gold. Those interesting epaulets, maybe. Okay, anyway, let's actually do what we're supposed to do here, and let's take a closer look at this gentleman. Okay, look at these crazy glasses. I mean, I get it. You got to be aerodynamic, but man, that's some late 80s, early 90s stuff shining through right there. But you know what? Good for him. Not many people can pull that off, and he's doing it. Something going on here on the side. I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if it's some glue, maybe some release agent. I'll have to see if that'll wash off. Can you kind of see it right there? Hopefully it's not just damage. But otherwise, these are very clean, very glossy, shiny glasses. They are not transparent. They're not translucent. It seems like it's just paint on the plastic, but that's all right. And then if we look at some of the detail, just seeing the parts that are cut into the hair, super well done, right? It's not just paint. These truly are 3-dimensional parts cut into, sculpted into the head itself. Can you see that? It's actually got depth to it, which is great. I mean, it's that little thing, not necessary, but adds to the detail. And then we've got sculpted the hair, the texture of that is very well done. And then the face, it's unfortunate that we don't get to see the eyes. Sometimes that's like the best part. And it's got an issue right here on the side of the face. That almost look, yeah, that's some paint just flat out missing, because I'm guessing, yeah, the head is cast in that light gray color, and some of it's just flat out missing on there. So if you pick one of these up, hopefully you don't experience the same thing, because it looks like I might have some up here as well. Unfortunate on that, but you know what? Sometimes it can't be helped. They can't all be 100% perfect. Flaws will happen. I'm not mad. There's good detail sculpted in there, and I mean, the skin tone, where it is still there, looks pretty well done. These cover so much, it's really hard to make a very solid assessment on the face and the realism to it. So let's just go into some flexibility. Side to side, not bad, right? So basically the same that we're seeing so far. Neck attached to the torso, and the head being on a pretty good ability to move. So down and then up. That's definitely looking up and not what would be straightforward. And then, of course, yes, we do have full Exorcist rotation twice around. And it looks like we still got that same deal going on in there. So very good for that. Butterfly joint in the shoulder. Excellent flexibility for backwards and up. Good rotation where the shoulder is willing to rotate before this bicep tricep point. Which, let me see if I can hold it enough to make it turn. See, the shoulder is so willing to turn, it's hard to get the bicep tricep isolated, because it also catches on the sculpt of the shoulder. So this is one of those where it's not a completely round, and it has this costume line sculpted in both pieces. so they end up interfering with each other. This line being raised catches the inside of the bicep or the tricep and impedes the ability for it to rotate. So it's not quite, it does start, but it takes a lot of effort. You can hear it creaking maybe to go all the way around. So more effort than there should be, but you know, it still does it. So take that for what you want. Double elbow, let's see what we got. Boom, solid. Okay, so good flexibility there. Extended out. Of course, no forearm rotation as typical, but the wrist does have full rotation, and this doesn't really impede it, right? There's a little bit poking forward, but it's a flexible plastic, kind of like the Speed Force pieces are made out of. So it does give a little bit for the wrist to move and for it to have wiggle. Now, it's upward wiggle if it's here. That is impeded, but it can do various other things, right? And same thing on the other side. Same flexibility, same little forearm things. They look like spoilers or wings for running. He's got a lot going on, like I said. Okay, mid-torso, same flexibility that we've seen in Barry and Jay. Same thing with the waist. And this is, it looks like it's honestly, I can't say that it's painted. It is cast plastic. Like, yeah, it seems like it's a flexible rubbery plastic that is attached to this, maybe glued to it. So that's good for wear, right? And spinning it and all that. You don't have to worry too much about like paint transfer or anything like that. Same joints in the middle, and we've got a great Kid Flash split. Way to go, Wallace. That thing that we're used to with flexibility there, you can see it is bowing to it, but it is giving it goes right back. No thigh rotation, double knee. That top one never wants to bend. Excellent flexibility for limbering up. So he is ready for the run. He's showing off, making everybody else look bad. All right, let's stretch that one out. No calf rotation. But the foot does have up and down, but we also have the impeding boot piece like Barry had, right? So it doesn't go up or forward or backward as much. But we do have the toe articulation, and it's toe down. And it does kind of interfere with the ankle breaker, but it still gives the ability more so than Barry's had, because it's a little bit more clearance there. Barry's was a lot tighter. This actually allows a little bit of a gap, or at least, yeah, it slides down a little bit. Probably not intentionally, but in that joint, it's popping down. So that does give it a little bit more freedom for posing, although I'm sure it's not intended. Okay. Now let's take a closer look at some of the paint apps. There's not a terrible lot because we've got a lot of this translucent Speed Force type plastic attached to it. As you can see, it goes all the way down here. The Flash emblem is part of it. These were painted on, and painted on pretty well, right? For being such a thin line, you can kind of see it's not perfect. But as far as the width of the line all the way down, not really too inconsistent, right? So it's not enough to really be alarming. I'm curious about the sudden jump, right? Because unless he's posed like this, you don't see those connecting pieces, which is a very interesting choice. Although, I mean, I guess if we do that and bring, yeah, if we bring the waist or that down forward, he is standing with some incredible posture, and that does have those lines connected. So, I mean, I guess that'll work. We can bring the head down, and yeah, he's good posture, and it keeps those lines connected. But if you don't quite have it like that in any posing, you immediately have that jump in the lines. So just a thing to throw out there. These black lines sculpted in here. The pants are made out of their own cast gray plastic. This appears to be, yeah, some more cast red plastic. These are painted onto the gray, and the soles of the shoes are also painted onto the gray. It's nice having the gray base because it doesn't let it show through so much. It's not as obvious if it is, because it's not a black. Something as stark difference as black, and there's tiny little splotches of red. I don't know if you can see them where some paint got through, but all in all, pretty pleased. All right, good figure. Let's see what happens if we have him with the proper posture. Will he stand easily on his own? Come on, Kid Flash. I know you can do this. Let's put those arms forward. Let's kind of cheat. Bring some weight forward. There we go. Not a lot of effort, right? Put the arms forward so he didn't have to stand fully just stiff. But there he goes. He is up there on his own. And let's bust open, last but not least, Blue costume, Wally West. All right. Let's see what old William West, former Kid Flash, has here. And what a cool costume, right? This I was very excited to get. I know I missed out on the red costume, and that seems pretty difficult to get. Secondary market, it is out there, but it's quite expensive comparatively. All right, an empty box. But I kind of like this blue costume better, right? Especially considering all the story behind it. There is our stand, and there is our Wally West figure card with a little bit of a zoom blur going on there. And let's bring our plastic tray, and he has his own effects. We're talking about some crazy... I mean, I guess he would have some amazingly stretched out effects because it's like a god Wally, right? Okay, here we go. Let's bust some of these. Hopefully we can get these a little bit faster. They are actually pulling a little bit easier than some of the other ones have been. Maybe I'm just getting used to it again. Getting adjusted to the torque that it takes. So again, be very cautious if you do use something to cut these out. I know I say it a lot, but I cannot stress it enough. I don't want anybody getting hurt. I definitely don't want to be giving a bad example here. I've had some people reach out with concern. Some people that know me, some friends that have seen videos, and they're like, "It makes me nervous when you're using that blade. Can you get something with a handle?" So, all right, we'll get Wally out of the way. As always, I apologize for the very loud plastic sounds. Let's pull these speed effects out of here that are taped in, which thank you for that. Thanks for the relief there, McFarlane Toys, finally. To have several things just in there by tape. I see these have some actual pegs on them, so that's very interesting. Top and bottom. These bigger and smaller ones, which I'm assuming they are for top and for bottom. All right, and I think we freed the arms for the Darkest Night. There we go. All right, let's get the Speed Force things out of the way and clear the shrapnel. Okay. Oh, one got away. All right, tray is empty, so we'll put that down out of the way. And let's take a look at these Speed Force pieces, right? So again, assuming that these smaller ones are higher ups and they have pegs on them, right? So they're ready to be stuck into something. The card did not have them on there like it gave us for the current Kid Flash, the Wallace. Here's a big one, also with a peg. Okay, interesting there. And then here are these medium-sized ones that have pegs, very similar in design. Oh, actually, they are identical in design. And then this one that has a peg and articulation. Can you believe that, right? Articulation in Flash Force lightning bolts, Speed Force lightning bolts. Very cool. Okay, and they're not identical, right? So they're different casts. Okay, let's take a look at old William, who is in a running pose or posing for a picture for running. I can see some peg holes already, so that's good. That kind of answers the question of where some of these things are going to go. But again, I think I've said it for all of them. Just immediately striking figure. Very cool, right? I love that color palette. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the redeemed Wally West in his blue. All right, so the hair sculpt definitely screams Wally. Look at it, just kind of sticking out. I do love the individual work on the hair right there. It seems like it's all one color. Could be neat, right, to add a little bit extra depth with a tiny little bit of a different shade in there just to make it pop. We've got the wings here. They are a rubberized plastic, so they're a little less likely to break, which is good. They're also not sharp as a result. Painted silver very nicely. A good job on that. Nothing really, yeah, so far, nothing really standing out on the silver of those. We've got the little Manhattan dot there in the middle, right? And yeah, the face looks pretty good. The blush is a lot better blended. A little bit darker on this side than over here, but better blended than we saw on Jay. The blue of the mask of the chin is not 100% perfect, slightly wavy, but you got to have it up close to be able to tell. The eyes look fantastic. Look at that green, man, and what an intense look. He is just ready to go. And yeah, I get this is pretty much a repaint, but it looks like they kind of nailed it with the repaint. But they did nail it with the original figure, from what I can tell. Okay, and head mobility, side to side, yeah, looking good, just like all the other ones, right? Because we've got that neck attached, and the head is separate from the neck, but it looks like we've got a dual action as far as helping it look up. Although the up is not as good as we've seen with the other ones, right? See if that still is basically almost straightforward. We can knock it down just ever so slightly, and he's looking straight forward. And then the down is definitely better, but it seemed like the other ones had a little bit better performance. And that's probably because this is a repaint, and those are most likely a lot of new, right? Because of the redesign of those characters in that moment in the storyline. Okay, anyway, let's take a look. So we've got our butterfly shoulder. That little one doesn't really want to move, unlike the berry one where it wanted to just pop right out and be free. But we do have the ability to lift the shoulder and move it back. So excellent flexibility in back and up, and then the rotation, the shoulder is ready to do that. And then our bicep tricep, a little bit of interference, but not as bad as we saw in current Kid Flash, Wallace. So it does get stuck a little bit, but it passes over very easily. Double elbow, looking pretty good, right? Ready to strike a pose. There's nothing to it, right? So there we go on good, and no forearm rotation, but we do have excellent wrist movability with the open hand, ready to do some just fabulous running, right? Okay, other arm has the same flexibility to it. So we have one closed fist one, and we have the open hand for, I'm just having a good time with that open hand, I'm telling you. Mid-torso / under the rib cage, same mobility that we've seen with all the other ones. Same thing with the waist. This is silver painted on top of this flexible blue plastic. So the inside of it, yeah, there's a little bit of silver, but this is cast in that light blue all the way through. So rub off is not a big concern like we saw on Jay with the yellow that went all the way down. Same joints, so same flexibility with the rubberized thing, but as you can see, one thing that happened there is it stretched the plastic a little bit and does cause it to whiten. But if I let it back down, some of the whitening fades. So be very careful with that, because that's happening on both sides. It did not happen with any of the other figures. So just be cautious, especially with that being a seam right there. So we don't want to pull it too far. Not too many Wally West splits. No thigh rotation, but we do have that double knee. And very good flexibility. But I don't want to force it to wrap around too much, but he can. That's right, limber up with the best of them. Of course, a godlike Flash can limber up. He's got the powers of Dr. Manhattan. Okay, no calf rotation, and then the foot, we don't have a boot interfering, so we have great up and down, back and forth, and we've got a good ankle braking capability and our toe articulation. And of course, both sides have that same capability. So I like how the McFarlane ones have this ball that rotates and has a peg on both ends, so it adds just that extra capability of really breaking an ankle. Okay, let's look at the paint apps on this guy. We already looked at the face pretty well, right? So nothing really major stood out there. We have a little bit of silver on here, and honestly, it looks like it's pretty cleanly done. So this is one of those situations where they had a repaint, and they took the opportunity to nail it, because nothing really horrible. There's a little bit of tiny silver right there. A little bit of casting issues, right? Just some extra flash or something on that. Flash. Which seems appropriate. Yeah, but I mean, nothing that really majorly stands out as far as any paint issues. The silver seems to be pretty well applied, even on the edges, right? Coming back into the figure. So the top edge. Not much of a bottom edge, but really not too much missed. Maybe a little bit there if I could be that nitpicky. But otherwise, looking pretty good. And just the way that the figure's designed, there are a lot of textures, as there are with all the other ones. And yeah, I always say that with a lot of textures, you can do like a dry brush or a wash. But with these, with the costumes, I'm not going to say anything about that. I mean, I am technically kind of now, but I'm not going to say I wish they had done that, because it would actually probably detract from the quality of this, because that's just not how the costume looks. Yeah, it could have like a shading type idea going, but no, I think it's great leaving it alone. There he is, standing okay on his own. I did have to give him quite an interesting stance, like he's ready to race. Makes sense. He's a Flash. So there we go. There is old Wally West, redeemed with the powers of Dr. Manhattan. And so right here's these pegs, and it looks like I would assume that these smaller ones would go up here, right? And just to kind of play around a little bit. So actually, that's a bigger one. Smaller ones, and I'm sticking a bigger. So, but anyway, we've got several different peg holes throughout the body that we can stick those into to give that additional effect that he has just really taken off. And then this one, I'm assuming we can put it here, or we also have this one as an option, but that doesn't really want to go there. It doesn't want to stay, is what I'll say. So maybe there's a different place for that to go. But this one seems like maybe, yeah, because it is sculpted to actually accommodate for the shoulder blades, the shoulder muscles. So there we go. Yeah, very cool. And they're articulated so that all of these things can kind of rotate depending on his trajectory. So if he's just flying down, there you go, have him at an angle. So that's neat. I'm a big fan of that. That's very cool. So there we go. All right, and let's spend the next bit of time putting together our Darkest Night figure. All right. So let's bring all the parts over. I've already rambled enough and taken up enough of your time. Let's work on putting this together. So here's the answer to what we're looking at for that neck articulation. It's that kind of barbell or dumbbell joint that's in there. So we got a ball there and the ball that goes up in the head, which is what's been helping all of these have that great up and down. And then this one, the up is definitely a lot better than the down. And I think it's just because of the shape of the neck, but the up is amazing. And gosh, look at this thing already. It's fantastic. Okay, let me put the legs on here. And I'm very curious if this one is going to perform better than some of the other Build-A-Figures that I've done with McFarlane. All right, not wanting to stay. Might take a little bit of extra love. Does this need to go under or over? That is the question. Okay, we'll come back to that, or we may just pause it, and I'll put it together, and then we will return if the legs give me too much trouble. Arms are going in just fine. They are plugging in. Not really a butterfly joint, but it seems like flexibility is not going to be terrible. Let's try. Was I trying to put the wrong one on, and it was just trying to tell me that? Were you trying to tell me that from out there? Because if you were, thank you. At least the figure heard you and was trying to tell me. Okay, I'm going to pause and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. And the reason that I went ahead and brought it back with a leg still missing is I wanted to take a second and show that I figured out what was going on, right? So I need to make sure that this isn't falling down too far, because it was, and that was definitely impeding. And what I did is I kind of made sure, that it was lined up and started it with the leg kind of turned and made sure that it was resting in there. And then you can hear the pop as you twist it. It kind of pops and creaks. But then if you rotate it as you go, it goes in and it seems to stay pretty well. So that's what was happening. I had a couple of things just working against me, and I honestly think I was trying to put the wrong leg on the wrong side at first. But now that he is assembled, oh my gosh, this guy. He's so crazy and lanky. I hope that he can work out some really neat poses. I won't try too hard with you looking and watching because I've already taken up so much of your time. But let's look at it. Let's look closer at this guy, because that's the whole point of why we're here. A closer look. So let's shift to manual focus and just, oh my gosh, this head is amazing. Look at the detail sculpted into this thing. And these eyes, they are painted, right? With the bright yellow on the outside and the white on the inside. But it just makes it look like it is glowing. Can you see that? Especially in the bright lights here. Fantastic. And then the extra tall Darkest Night ears, and you can see how it's that translucent plastic, that kind of purplish, grayish black. We already saw excellent flexibility. We do have jaw articulation, which just adds to the creepiness, right? How cool is that? Okay, but then can you see all the textures just molded into this thing? It is like it looks like it's just constantly moving slime or creepiness, or really like a symbiote. It looks like a Marvel symbiote. Sorry, DC, for saying that. And sorry for everyone if I am horribly pronouncing symbiote. But articulation and movement, we don't have a butterfly joint, which makes sense, right? Because that little disc piece would be flying around. But we do have good movement in the shoulder, up and down, and rotation. We have the bicep tricep rotation. We have double elbow, so even he can scratches the back of his ear, you know, and get his thumper thing going. No forearm movement. The wrist does have forward and back, right? So it's a little bit different. This is kind of it does have that, and it does have rotation, but it's not that typical McFarlane ball with the two pegs coming out of it. Both are the same, right? Same articulation, same thing with the wrist here. You can see it's got that joint. We do have the mid-torso, right? But he kind of stays in a bit of a hunched manner, right? If we try and push him back too far, the spine and the gel kind of hit one another, and it wants to stay forward. Waist rotation, we do have some. You can see this gap just kind of stays. You can push this up and push things down, but it does kind of stay. No big deal though. I mean, it's still a beautiful thing. And if you push it up high enough for it to... Okay, that was a quick jump and we're back. My card actually ended up getting full. Did not know that was happening, so the recording stopped. I'm not exactly sure where it happened, but we do have the waist and we have the typical McFarlane with the legs, but some of the slime does hit, even though this is flexible and it does block some of the split. But all in all, I mean, pretty good split on that. I can't really complain. Double knee coming all the way up, so even the Darkest Night can limber up for the run, for the fight. The knees kind of stay a constant bent status, which just adds to that creepiness, right? The lurchy eeriness. Foot, wow, very good forward, very good back, right? It helps when you've got large and then kind of just almost bone, so not much to block it, no boot bottoms. Toe articulation, very good for these creepy little demon toes that he has. And then let's see, do we have... No, so we don't have that typical joint on there. It's just the forward and backwards. So kind of like the wrist, we don't have that same mobility, so we do not have ankle break capability on the Darkest Night. So depending on where that jumped, I do apologize for the interruption. Although, I mean, in the take of this and when it's all edited together, it's not going to have an interruption, but still... Knowing that it happened, I do apologize for that. It's an odd jump and it can be a little off-putting or jarring, but there he is. And being a Build-A-Figure that was assembled and so lanky and potentially top-heavy, he stands perfectly well with very little coaxing. I'm very excited to see what kind of posability this amazing creature has. And just look, let's do like side by side with old Wally here. Look at that size difference. That is phenomenal, right? So I had Wally set where he was standing, but now he doesn't want to. But look at that size difference. Wow. Okay, so that has been it. That is our 4-pack of Flash from the Speed Metal for the Build-A-Figure for the Darkest Night. And we're going to be back with some 360 views of these guys. We'll be right back. Okay, and here is our 4-pack Speed Metal Flash set with Wally, Barry, Jay, and Wallace Wally, aka Kid Flash, to build the Darkest Night. All in all very well made figures. Obviously some opportunities in some of them, like Barry and things like that, which we pointed out, but I highly recommend them, right? So not dissatisfied with any of these Flashes and extremely satisfied with the ultimate combined effort to make that Build-A-Figure of the Darkest Night. That thing is just fantastic. I cannot wait to mix that in and have it on display. So definitely check them out if you haven't already. If you have, I hope you're enjoying them as much as I am. So that's been it. Thanks. Well, that about does it. Thank you for checking us out as always and for joining us on this collecting journey. Look for a new video each week, if not more. Be sure to subscribe and click that like button. It would really help us out and it would truly mean a lot to me. Now, if you'd like to see some more videos, there are a couple of quick links on your screen right now for you to check out. But no matter what, as always, thank you for taking the time, and remember, we are all in this world of collecting together. Let's look out for each other. Thanks.